Well, hello, GCC youth. It's good to be with you again. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're hanging in there. So, we've been in this series called Love Hate, and that's love/hate. Not that we love hate or love hating on anyone, just to be clear. But this week is the last week in the series. So, let's kick it off. Okay, go with me on this. I do realize that malls are dying, but I still think they can be fascinating places. Besides the fact that malls are great for people watching, have you ever done that? If not, try it sometime. It's a blast. But malls are a place where hundreds of very different brands with completely different vibes are all situated side by side. They're all together. And maybe you've never thought about brands having vibes or personalities or reputations, but they do. Think about it. There's a difference between Nike and Sperry, right? And even though they both sell shoes, you instantly know when you walk by which one is which. Or what about Urban Outfitters and H&M? They literally sell the same products to the same age people, but there's just something different about them. But here's why I think it's fascinating. Companies spend billions of dollars each year trying to control those brands' reputations. The look, the smell, the thing they're known for, those aren't accidents. They're carefully decided. Here's what I'm talking about. I'm going to read a reputation, and you tell me which brand you think it is. 2 days or less, lightning fast shipping. Save money, live better. Easy one, right? The best cell phones. Okay, I hear a few of you arguing already, but the best cell phones for people who are not smart enough to build their own apps. Free music streaming. Best chicken sandwich ever. Chick-fil-A, hands down. Here's the point. Companies hire hundreds of people and spend billions of dollars trying to shape something that every one of us has and most of us spend very little time thinking about, our reputation. Our reputations are made up of all sorts of things and bring out all kinds of assumptions about who we are. Just think about the various groups in, let's say, your school or a team or something, and the assumptions that you've made about people who are part of those. Assumptions like, every rich kid is blank, or the white, black, Hispanic, Asian kids are blank, or the people with TikTok clout are fill in the blank. What about this? The AP honors students are fill in the blank again. The football cheerleaders are blank. The people that are really into band are blank. The kids who vape are blank. And just to remind you, we're thinking about the stereotypes, not pointing these out. And even though we don't say them out loud, or at least we shouldn't, we all tend to fill in the blanks about other people, to assume we know what to expect from them now and what they're capable of and how they'll respond in any situation. In other words, how we fill in the blank now determines what we expect from them next. Whether we know the person or not doesn't really matter. We know their reputation, or we build one for them in our minds based on a single action or a single person in their group. And this is a human thing. We all do it. So where do all these assumptions come from? Well, I think they come from a lot of places, but the following stand out to me the most. The first one is experiences. For example, we have experiences of what someone like them did or said to us, and we use those experiences to prejudge what this person's like. Another one is insecurities. Sometimes our assumptions are formed from our insecurities. The person we're filling in a blank about has something we want or wish we had. They have the starting position on the team, or maybe the house or the family we can never afford, and it's just annoying. We automatically assume the worst about them because they remind us of how far we feel from being the best. Our limited experiences and insecurities cause us to fill in the blanks and convince ourselves that we know way more about someone than we actually do. That we can literally predict their future, kind of. It's kind of illogical when you think about it. And it can be a problem if we really want to be known for love rather than hate, because often, to be honest, we don't fill in the blank with something nice. The ironic part is that we hate it when someone else does this to us. But how do we resist the temptation to do the same thing to other people? Well, there's a moment from Jesus' life that may be able to help us here. Jesus was in the middle of a tense encounter with some of the religious leaders in Israel at that time, and these teachers of the law and Pharisees were kind of a big deal in religious circles. They had a brand of self-righteousness that they thought set them apart from everyone else. So when Jesus came around and started spending time with the people that these religious leaders had branded as sinners, or people who weren't as close to God as they were, things got tense. They actually started trying to catch Jesus off guard with asking him questions they hoped would prove he was a phony. They wanted him to slip up and answer something in a way that took away his credibility and made him look bad. So during one of these encounters, after some people had gathered to listen to Jesus teach in the temple, these religious leaders caught a woman in an R-rated situation. So what did they do? Well, they dragged her in front of Jesus and everyone else to see how he would handle the punishment. And I think what unfolds here shows us a different way to live instead of filling in the blanks about other people's reputations. Here's what happened. As he was speaking, the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. That's John 8, 3-6. Now don't miss this. The text says that this woman had been caught in the act. She was literally committing adultery when the leaders found her. Now there's no doubt she was already pretty humiliated, and the law demanded that people respond by literally throwing rocks at her until she dies. And so the religious leaders wanted to make Jesus choose in front of a crowd of people. Was he going to overlook this woman's obvious sin and ignore the law of Moses, which would have taken away Jesus' credibility as a teacher and anger the religious leaders even more? Or would he allow her to be stoned, which would cause the crowd to turn on him? So it was a trap. The leaders knew it was a trap, and that was the whole point. Let's look at what happens next. It says, "But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger." They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." That's John 8, 6-11. Now, this was kind of a mic drop moment, right? And I'm not sure we can fully understand the tension of this moment. These religious leaders who built their brand on appearing better than others and pointing out the sins of other people, they are totally put in their place. Basically, Jesus is saying, you're quick to point out what everyone else has gotten wrong, but what about you? Have you ever gotten it wrong? Then, one by one, these leaders realize their plan backfired. And Jesus kindly and lovingly releases the woman who is literally afraid for her life and tells her to go in freedom and live her life differently. Now, can you imagine? And don't miss this. Everyone here was guilty of something, both the religious leaders and this woman. And Jesus had a message for both of them, actually. And that message is this: what is possible for your future isn't determined by your past. Not if you're a Pharisee and not if you're the woman. Both are guilty and both are free to go. Both had a reputation for being one way, and yet both can choose to leave differently than they arrived. So Jesus challenged the woman to change by saying, "Go and sin no more," because no matter what her reputation was, he believed change was possible for her. It was absolutely a Jesus move. He changed everything because he responded in love to everyone in the situation, to the woman and to the Pharisees. And this is exactly what you and I should be about too. But isn't it true that sometimes we're more on brand with those religious leaders? Don't we often fill in the blanks about other people based on their one-time behavior? And don't we tend to assume we already know what will happen next in their story because of what has happened before, or even what we think they may have done? I think we have to take note that Jesus' approach to the situation in this story teaches us something very different. The woman who had a brand or a reputation for being bad, who everyone judged based on this one thing she had done, was seen as more than this one thing by Jesus. He believed something was possible in her future, no matter what her past was. He didn't write a story about who she was because of what she'd been caught doing. And he didn't fill in a blank for her, even though he knew everything about her. He saw her as a whole person. And as a whole person, he saw her as being deserving of another chance. So what's the point of all this? Well, Jesus proved that we are more than the assumptions or the judgments that others make of us. We are worthy of forgiveness, of grace, and a second chance because of his love for us. And we can extend the same forgiveness, the same grace and love to others too. So what if this was the approach you and I started to take when we started forming our opinions of other people? What if instead of filling in the blanks with assumptions and judgments, we chose to believe that anyone could be radically changed? What if we believed that anyone could surprise us and be far better than we think they are? What if we chose to let love fill in the blank? I think this would change a lot about the way we think about and the way we treat other people, wouldn't it? Not only that, this would also change a lot about the way we think of ourselves too. We may wind up realizing we're not as terrible as other people have made us feel, or we're not as perfect as we may think we are. There's something both encouraging and humbling about Jesus' approach here. It puts all of us on the same level. As people, God loves and people Jesus died to forgive and set free, not just the sum total of our actions. And I don't know about you, but I am thankful for that. So when the opportunities for assumptions and judgments start flying at you, take these steps toward a new approach. First, stop and think about how others have filled in the blanks about you. When you make an assumption about someone and about how they are or what they will do, stop. Stop and think about your own life. How have people underestimated you? How have they judged you? How have you experienced from the other side of someone filling in the blank? Remember, Jesus' forgiveness brought you to a place where your life started to change for the better. Then treat other people the way Jesus has treated you, with grace and love, assuming their best days can be ahead of them. The next thing is to think about how you've wrongly filled in the blanks for someone else. Who is someone you think you know, but you really don't? Who have you filled in the blanks for in a negative way without learning their whole story? What if you chose to fill in the blanks about them with Jesus' brand of compassion? What if you chose to let love fill in the blank for what we think about someone now and what we expect for them in the future? Okay, here's where it gets a little personal. Everybody does this. We all need to ease up on our assumptions and judgments. But when it comes to church and church people, getting this right is even more important. Maybe you tend to assume, well, they don't belong here. They just don't fit the bill. Or maybe that you don't belong here. Or that they'll never change. Or that people like that, or people like me, you might say, always, and you fill in the blank for them. But here's the thing, friends. Statements like those, as easy as they are to make, take the Christ out of Christianity. There's no Jesus in those. And so they should have no place here in us. Jesus made it abundantly clear with the woman and with the Pharisees and with nearly everyone he met that love never fills in the blank with never. There's always hope for change, always. And no one is beyond redemption, and that includes you. When we choose to follow Jesus' example and take these steps, we're choosing to let love fill in the blank instead of our quick or shallow assumptions about judgments, about who they are now and who they will become. Just imagine with me, what would happen if this is how we spent our time forming opinions of those around us? So instead of assumptions, stereotypes, and preconceived notions based on a part of a person, we would be people who believed everyone is worthy of love and has hope for a great future. If this is really what Jesus is about, doesn't it cause you to be a little more interested in his way of branding people? I truly believe that we can be people who let love fill in the blank about others. And when we do this, we will be known for our love of others, just like Jesus was, and just like Jesus intended for his people to be.